What's up? Welcome to Tales to Meow Meow. My name is Meow Meow, and today we got Meow Meow RPG horror stories for Meow Meow. This is a hint to my Halloween costume. Can you guess what it is? Meow Meow, Meow Meow Meow, Meow 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 Meow. It is also a reference. Someday I'll talk about it more and you'll understand it. But anyway, let's get some RPG horror Meow Meows for Meow Meow. Player insists it's not a fetish. Now, before we get into this story specifically, $5 that it is a fetish. I'm putting it out, my 5 doubloons, my 5 gold pieces. Feel that the story is a bit boring compared to some of the other posts here, but I'm curious to hear what other reactions to this. I have a player I'm probably going to be kicking from my Pathfinder game, who I've played with for a few months now. I've run a series of mini campaigns, and this player's character for every campaign is the exact same. Some kind of a giant race, extremely muscular woman who grows in size during combat encounters, has a very innocent and cute anime girl demeanor. The build is the exact same, some form of barbarian, and there's general disinterest in combat or dungeon crawling, which sucks for me because I put a lot of work into the dungeons I design, and a lot of focus on points that feel fetishistic to me. Points like the character's not fitting through doors, the character knocking stuff over with her gigantic body, the character ripping through clothes because there's nothing that fits. You get the picture. The player is also very fixating on finding an otherwise average-sized man to tower over in a romantic relationship, which comes up every time the party comes to a settlement of any kind. Struggle to think of specific situations because a lot of this stuff is just peppered into regular play, which makes it hard to address without stopping the game immediately. It is either, well, I was thinking it's like a giantess fetish or maybe inflation fetish. Probably not inflation fetish, but definitely some kind of a large, like big girl kind of fetish. I'm assuming you have to be into giantesses or something. I don't know, dude. It's one of those things that I don't really dabble in that sort of thing. I'm a player that likes to have the character be tall, and most of the characters I play be pretty tall, but not to this extent. Not to the point of like, oh, me so big and cute, oh, me rip my skirt, or whatever. Things came to a head last session when the player described the barbarian getting the killing blow on a knight lieutenant of the campaign's BBG as the character sitting on the knight's chest and denting his breastplate with her massive body. Okay, that just straight up sounds like it's from a fetish of some kind. This is 100% from a fetish. Isn't it like I'm gonna date myself, and this is really weird. Has anybody ever watched the show TISH on Comedy Central? If you have, there was a specific segment he had for, I think, first season or second season, where there was a very large woman and men would pay her to like woman handle them, sit on them, push them around. And she was very tall, very big, very strong too. She could like lift dudes like no business and stuff. And the whole thing was the dudes would pay her, so she'd just bully them around, like push them around, like sit on them or whatever. It was really strange. Is it that kind of a kink? Just be a big girl that sits on everything and uses their size for everything. It has to. This is 100% a fetish. This is 100% a fetish for something. I don't know if they want to be the big woman or they want a big woman to sit on them. It's some sort of big woman fetish. I don't get it. After the battle, the player tried to describe the character attempting to take the enchanted armor to the blacksmith to get it sized up and being unable to fit through the door because her legs were too wide. After she squeezed through, it was another description of her knocking over several weapon racks and even a whole anvil. At that point, I cut the session short because I was becoming extremely uncomfortable. It is really difficult to confront the player on their character because they're extremely content to say that it isn't a fetish, it's a character design choice. They'll point to other players who will make characters that are sexualized in some respect. For example, one of the other player characters is an elven rogue who dresses in very tight clothing and ask why is this allowed, but they get attacked for their design choices. Having tight-fitting clothing for a rogue that's trying to stay nimble, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, maybe it could be a fetish, I don't know. Having tight-fit clothing on you could be, I don't know. But they go on a little bit extra into it. It would be one thing if the rogue player, the elven player, was describing my elven rogue moves around and you could see the creases on the clothing moving tightly against their body and stuff, you know, going a little bit too descriptive into it. Compared to the giantess player, who's specifically playing somebody that's describing themselves not able to fit through doors and bumping things, they even knocking an anvil of all things over. Have you ever tried lifting an anvil? It is heavy. They're going out of the way to describe the size of the character, right? When I'm playing as Morrow, right, I just say, Morrow lifts his hand, uses Eldritch Blast. I obviously use a little bit more flavored language, but it would be one thing. It's like Morrow bites his tongue cheekily and then gives a spank on the ass before he fires an Eldritch Blast, and there's a bit of a moan, as he blasts that ass. That'd be a little bit weird. And yeah, I understand why people would be like, Morrow, are you okay? Is everything going on? Is this a fetish? Yeah, it would be difficult for me to defend it not being a fetish because I'm specifically describing everything in so much detail, and it sounds like I'm probably enjoying myself. And I feel like this player's secretly enjoying themselves too. We had stories where players are literally playing at something and they just crank it in the background. So, I think this is generally 100% a fetish, and the player just getting off on it. I'm not a prude, and I don't have any issue with a muscular woman character being sexualized, provided it isn't excessive. I struggle to explain to this player the difference between a fetishistic character and a sexualized character. It doesn't help that I can't tell if the player is trying to gaslight me about whether or not the character is fetishistic, or they're very socially unaware. I'm suspecting some kind of disability and don't understand. At the worst of it, it is some pure gaslighting. At the least of it, it could be just they just don't know that this is just a fetish they're describing, or maybe they're misunderstanding this is a fetish, or like I said, some sort of disability, and they think like this is fine, it's okay. But you should probably still let you know the boundaries of like, okay, this is too descriptive. No, you can't go this descriptive. It just makes me uncomfortable. If it makes everybody at the table uncomfortable and everybody is just not cool with it, you should just let the player know to knock it off because nobody's vibing with it. If it was something so mundane and so simple that didn't make people uncomfortable, that'd be one thing. But if it's making everybody at the table uncomfortable, then yeah, crossing a little bit to that creepy, unsettling territory that people just don't want to be messing with. So they probably should knock it off. I'll probably kick them anyway at this point for how uncomfortable everyone else at the table is. But I'd like to at least try to articulate why it isn't okay. But a character in a bodysuit or in a lot of leather might be. I'll post an update when I have a talk with the player. But for now, I'm trying to figure out how to best make my point without saying you're making everyone uncomfortable and would like you to leave. I'm hoping that I can at least express the issue well enough that the player might behave differently in the next or other games. And guess what? We have an answer. Let's see what they say. Edit. I had a talk with the problem player and used some of the advice on this thread. I said they were making everyone uncomfortable irregardless or if they found their character sexually arousing or not, because the only thing to focus on was the character's gigantic size. I said it seemed like a macrophilia fetish. They continued to deny and accuse me of being unfair and the table of not allowing them to play characters they were interested in. I asked them specifically what made them interested in characters with the exact same personality and physical characteristics. They replied with a very convincing, "I don't know." Then asked my other player why he felt the need to put his elf woman in a leather bodysuit and asked how that wasn't the same since she was sexualized too. At that point I said, "So you're admitting that the giant size is sexually appealing to you, the same way a leather bodysuit might be to someone else?" They got angry at that point and accused me of taking them out of context. So I amended it to, exercising all the charitability I had left, "So you realize why it is seen as sexual. You understand why playing a character that is seen as very sexually charged might make others uncomfortable." They responded by saying it wasn't their fault that other people felt that way. At that point, I, quite fed up with them, issued an ultimatum, stating that they wanted to stay in the group, they could not make a character that was more than the third tallest, widest in the group. Predictably, they left the call and group in a rage. I haven't heard from them since, and I learned a very valuable lesson about not being a doormat. It's funny how they immediately jumped on the other player having a sexualized character. They said, but this other character can have a sexualized character, meaning they know the character is sexualized. They're probably just gaslighting you. They're generally just gaslighting you. This is their way of getting off to their fetish, and every single time like people say, hey, maybe don't do that, they say, what do you mean? I don't know what's going on. Playing dumb, basically. It's just simple as that. They're playing dumb so they can get away with a weird fetish and have everybody be around it. You know, probably what it is, talking about sexual things without like anybody questioning that, that's probably also their kink as well. Or maybe they're into that sort of thing. I don't know, dude. It's weird. Either way, the golden rule is do not bring your fetishes to your TTRPG tables as DMs or players. Simple as that. Just simply do not. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you're into, doesn't matter what kind of things you're into. Listen, I like succubi women. I love them. I think they're hot. I want them to take me down to the deepest parts of hell and do whatever they want with me. But I'm not going to be asking DM to set up a whole succubi harem for me just to appeal to my fetish, if you even call it a fetish. Dude, I just think devil girls are hot. That's all they are. It's not even a fetish for me. I just think they're attractive. But also, I think women are just hot too. Women are hot. Is that a fetish now that I like women? Every single story we covered that has somebody bringing in the fetish and just dumping it into the game, it never goes out well. And people feel really awkward and uncomfortable. And you know what, DM? I commend you for talking to the player directly and figuring out this whole situation. If it's making everybody at the table uncomfortable, something needs to happen. Some sort of decision needs to come. And turns out the decision was the problem player removed themselves as soon as they were asked not to be all creepy sexual. And the solution in this situation is the problem player leaving. Either way, let's get to the next story for today. Ostracized for progressing the plot. I've never posted on Reddit before, but I had such an awful experience at a game I truly love that I needed some way to help me process my emotions. I've been playing D&D since the 4th grade as both a player and a DM. To say that I've had my fair share of problem players or even DMs would be an understatement, but I've learned that 99% of problems can be solved with a little bit of communication. Unfortunately, now that I'm at university in the 2nd semester of my graduate program, I finally encountered the 1%. My university has a tabletop role-playing club, where the most popular game being played is D&D 5e. Throughout my undergraduate, I didn't have much of a chance to play and I really started to miss it. So I decided to join one of the campaigns that really stood out to me. A level 1 to 20, 4DM, 40-player game taking place on a shared continent, where events that happen in each session influence the whole world, people in other sessions. Each DM was responsible for a nation within a continent, and I chose the DM who was running a nation ruled by vampires, eternally shrouded in magical darkness. He described the tone of the game as being grim-dark, with low combat and high focus on role-playing. This campaign also had a Discord group for secret plans and not a session role-playing between player characters. Starting session 0, it seemed like the setting was the most popular as there were about 30 people present. However, most of the people that weren't actually interested in the campaign just wanted to socialize. At session 1, we had about 15 players, which is a lot, but I assumed since this was a club game, the DM would have experience with large groups. I knew that because of the large group size that not every character would have their time to shine at every session, and that we all would have to be willing to give up the spotlight from time to time. This is where the main issue arose. 15 players for a session is nuts. How can a single DM run 15 people? I would understand if, let's say, for example, they had 3 DMs to account for 5 people per table and just all run together and coordinate together. That'd be one thing. Yeah, that could be manageable. But a single person handling 15 people? Insanity. Insanity. You'd never be able to get through a single round of combat before 3 hours will pass, and by that time everybody would start packing up. That sounds nuts. Let's get to it. It became clear very quickly that DM was close high school friends with 3 of the players. This led to them receiving the majority of the DM's attention. 2 of the DM's friends were playing a half of Bard and a half of Warlock. They were canonically identically twins, and that was the largest problem in the entire campaign. They obviously didn't care about this story, as they would call NPCs by the wrong name at every single interaction, and be extremely confused at pretty much any statement that was made. This wouldn't have been a huge issue, but the Warlock, which I'll refer to as Tree, was the majority of the focus every session. In session 1, Tree threw their weapons on the ground and charged into a group of angry ghouls that a vampire had instructed us to kill for his favor. This led to Tree being decapitated, with the only option of revival being having their head turn into a vampire and stitch onto the body of a magical doll by the vampire we were helping. Tree's new patron became this vampire, and they gained the power of telepathy. This led to 1 or 2 hours of each 4 to 5 hour sessions being dedicated to conversations between Tree and random NPCs that had no other player could be involved in because they were all happening telepathically. This conversation mainly centered around trying to have sex with the vampires. 2 hours? 2 hours of a 4 to 5 hour session spent talking telepathically about having sex with vampires? Get me out of this. Get me out of this hell. Oh my god, what the hell? The other twin, who I'll call Bark, clever name, was not much better. Anytime our party interacted with a female NPC, it would practically be non-stop sexual harassment. This went beyond the horny bard subtype led to us having negative relationships with pretty much every NPC we interacted with. This harassment also extended to other player characters. One of the other players was playing a Warforged artificer that was flavored to be FNAF-esque animatronic. The twins would constantly make jokes about the Warforged being a PDF file. PDF-philia was even a strict line not to be crossed, as discussed in Session 0, and it was clear these jokes were making people at the table uncomfortable, but unfortunately the DM did nothing to stop them. Other players started to split the party as it was clear they were getting annoyed by the one-note sex jokes and lack of progress, which led to the death of our Dragonborn monk due to the encounters being balanced for the whole party. This all came to a head when the party encountered our first real challenge, killing a vampire lord. If they're playing for the vampire faction, then should they be even killing a vampire? I mean, unless the vampire is a BBG, I'm not fully sure. But like, this is a disaster. Not only is the DM trying to manage 15 people and everybody tries to play together, now they got Tree and Bark, clever names. I'm assuming there's a reference to them, I don't know. But like, they're trying to basically hog the spotlight for the DM. And of course, the DM acquiesces. I guess nobody gets to play at this point. Everybody just gets to watch as Tree and Bark do something stupid. Or sexual, or stupidly sexual, or sexually stupid. Either way, let's see what else happens. The DM throughout the entire campaign was hyping up how strong he was, and how he wouldn't hesitate to kill us at all if he didn't have a good plan. Some players, including myself, tried to create a plan in Discord between sessions, as it seemed like any time discussing plans during sessions would be interrupted and disregarded. It appeared that the Discord plans were fruitless as well, as they were disregarded for an in-person planning session that pretty much amounted to twins saying, the plan is we kill the vampire lord, over and over again. Since the DM was threatening to kill us if we didn't have a good plan, I decided to create a backup plan where I pose as one of the vampire lord's cooks to poison him. Turns out that my plan was the one that succeeded and dropped the vampire lord to HP to 0. However, to fully destroy him, start pouring water over his body, as only sunlight and running water can truly kill a vampire. While a small group of players started using shape water and other spells to create enough water to destroy the vampire, other players either sat by and did nothing during the combat, or left to go loot the castle while we fought against the guards. This was apparently because they were mad that my plan succeeded, and theirs did not. Tried explaining that my plan was only supposed to be a backup plan if theirs failed, so that we wouldn't all be killed, but that did not dissuade them. After killing the vampire, those who actually tried to advance the plot were given nothing, while those engaging in toxic behavior were the only ones rewarded. When you're trying to make a plan as a group with 15 people, it's gotta be difficult, but them arguing specifically that it has to be in-person planning, and the twins basically hogging the spotlight saying, we just go kill him, we just go in and kill the vampire. With what? You have no plans, you just want to march in there, Eldritch Blast a couple of times, and there we go, get some loot. Yeah, you could probably spam the hell out of the vampire, but if it's balanced for 15 people, then obviously there's there's gotta be some sort of reasoning. The DM even said, you gotta get a plan. And this player, OP, made a plan. They decided to be a cook, see if they can poison the vampire. It worked. Now they gotta properly finish it off. I mean, yeah, on one hand, it probably would have been better if they were able to coordinate together somehow, but you have 15 people. You have 15 people playing. There's no coordination. There's no proper communication. There's gonna be a breakdown of communication left, right, and center. It's just never gonna work. I don't know, man. It sounds like a disaster. You honestly should have left. It's just not worth it. You're spending so much brain power and thinking and energy into this campaign that honestly, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. The session after this one is what made me finally leave the group. The Tree and the other party members that left to loot found 3 VIP tickets to a Coliseum event that held an NPC we needed to rescue. Since we had 15 players in our party, plus some NPCs, we decided to draft party members into 2 groups with non-ticket holders being the security detail. We then started going through to pick with the ticket holder being the team captain. Finally got to the end of the draft, and I was still not picked. The team members then started picking NPCs to be on their team. After all the NPCs were chosen, the team leader said, okay, that's everyone, let's go. DM interjected and I was still not picked. The 2 team leaders that argued over who was stuck with me, since I was worthless, would probably run off and do something stupid. I was pretty much done at this point, since I was trying to be the best party member I could be, and was still being treated like dirt. I brought snacks to the session, enough for 15 people, shared my items with the party, and gave up my time in the spotlight for other members that were being trampled by the DM's friends. Tried to communicate and explain that I wasn't trying to steal anyone's thunder with a vampire lord, but they pretty much just stonewalled me. I then decided to leave the group mid-session. First time I've ever done so, as the attacks were clearly being lobbed out of character. Then I'm going to take a break from tabletop games for a while, as I never felt worse playing a game than I did that moment. Thanks for reading my post, it helps to get it out. I hope you feel better, and I hope you find a game that you deserve, because this is a mess. It's just a rightful mess. 15 people in a single session it's just bound to fail. It's just bound to fail. Like, you need somebody that's going to be there, like a proper group of like 5 to 6 people, 7 at most that the DM can handle it, and even then that's egregious. And a DM that can actually pay attention to everybody, where you can actually actively participate and be heard. With 15 people trying to blabber around and trying to make a plan with barking tree, constantly barking up the wrong tree. Is that the pun? Is that the pun, barking up the wrong tree? With them trying to just basically dominate the conversation and letting anybody get a word in, with DM primarily focusing on their besties, friendies ever. You should have left a lot sooner. Your energy could be spent for other people. Also, the audacity to kick you when you bring snacks for 15 people. That's a lot of snacks. That's a lot of money goes in to make sure that people have nice snacks to eat while they're playing D&D with a 15 people crowd. Christ, that is insane. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.